Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Now, a university debating society in Wales has ignited a free speech row. The Debating and Political Society at Bangor University refused to hold an event with Reform MP for Runcorn and Helsby, Sarah Poachin. Now, the invitation from the MP and the party advisor, Jack Anderton, was also turned down because of claimed racism, transphobia or homophobia displayed by the members of Reform UK. So with me now is political commentator and advisor to Reform UK, Jack Anderton. Jack, thank you so much for joining me. Right, so what do we conclude about this? This is just astonishing. It is, satire has died when the debating society won't debate people that they disagree with.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like for those American viewers, it's almost like an SNL skit. A debating society refuses to actually debate with people. Yeah. And yeah, what's happened is essentially I've been doing a university tour that was sort of inspired by Charlie Kirk. And Sarah Poachin called me up one day and said I'd like to do an event at Bangor University. She's campaigning in that area. So my team reached out to Bangor University's Politics and Debating Society, and they replied with a very rude message back, which you read to your viewers, essentially calling us racist, homophobic, transphobic, and hateful, and said that we would not be invited to campus and that we were banned. And I've been quite surprised actually at the storm that it has created, because you tend to find a lot of these issues that happen on universities, you know, speakers disinvited, events cancelled, but it's really seemed to have struck a nerve. And I think it's primarily because it is a university society essentially saying that the leading political party in the British opinion polls is inherently hateful and racist, which is essentially tarring millions of the supporters and voters with that exact same brush.
And we, of course, have contacted them to see if they would come on. I would love to have had somebody here from the Bangor Debating Society tonight. They wouldn't come and talk to us, Jack. Have you been able to have any sort of conversation with them, one-to-one, on the phone, or even across email, as to why they think this sort of detachment, this silence, is somehow a show of strength from them? Because that's what I would love to put to them. Why do they think not debating is somehow a win?
So unfortunately, I haven't had direct contact with the society. Again, I'd love to, and myself and Sarah would have engaged in a perfectly good faith, reasonable debate if we had been able to attend. I am in contact with the university administration. I have a call with them tomorrow. So hopefully we will be able to put on this event either way, with or without the Politics and Debating Society, as it's really, really important. You know, Bangor University is the oldest university in Wales. It's a prestigious university. This isn't sort of some random polytechnic that turned into a university. This is a historic institution, and it should treat free speech in the same way that it treats every other right.
And just briefly, how much positive response do you get when you go to universities? Do they all hate you?
Well, I've had a couple of interesting experiences at York University. I spoke at York University a couple of months back. Bev, I had 400 students come out marching the streets protesting me. There were about 40 students actually in the talk listening to me speak. So that was 400 students out marching and protesting against me. Edinburgh University, I had 3 venues cancel and a protest outside of my event. So unfortunately that wasn't able to take place, but I'm back there Friday. So hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes well. But generally the students in the room have been supportive. They haven't been deterred by the protesters. And really they are just interested in hearing and discussing with someone who, I'd say for myself, has been involved in the insurgent political party.
OK, Jack, fascinating. Keep us posted, won't you, with how that conversation goes with Bangor University. Jack Anderton, their advisor to Reform UK and political commentator. Let's talk now.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GBNews viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Now to Professor Steven Scultetti, Professor of Philosophy at the University of Mississippi. Thank you so much, Steven, for joining me. It was very last minute tonight, but I was so keen to get an American professor's voice on this, because you guys here very much seem to believe that free speech is the basis of learning and intellectual expansion. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But what do you make of it when you hear that one of the UK's top universities is banning a sitting member of Parliament from debating because they disagree with her politics?
It's just a sign that higher education is often becoming more political. And we're using ideas like hate and racism and accusations like that. It's not only to shut down debate, but it's to make sure that the institution only represents one political position and only allows one political position to be accommodated or find voice on university campuses.
Do you find that students coming through your door have to be encouraged to even think about both sides of an argument? Or do they walk through the door, they think they know it all? I mean, students have always been a bit like that, right? But they walk through the door, they think they know it all, and nobody can change their mind. What's gone wrong here, Steven, in terms of intellectual growth?
Yeah, well, so I'm a professor of philosophy. I'm also the director for the Declaration of Independence Center for the Study of American Freedom. And I think about this a lot because the students who do come through my door, a lot of times they think they understand the world. They think everything is clear cut. They've only been listening to certain voices on social media, and they're just in an echo chamber. And it's a real eye-opening experience to them that there's intelligent, thoughtful, intellectual people on all sides of these major debates that we're having in our countries. And that's why this story in particular is so sad to me. I mean, it's one thing to say that there are some debates that are so ridiculous that you don't need to have them on university campuses. We don't need to be debating whether the moon is made of cheese or other just preposterous things. But liberal democracies, we're having these major fundamental debates where there are intelligent and brilliant people on all sides articulating the views of tens of millions of people. And it's just outrageous that people would try to shut down those fundamental debates that we're having about the nature of citizenship, country, and sovereignty, and try to push them out of a university context. So it's tragic.
Yeah, it is. I'd love you to come back another day, Professor Steven Scultetti there, Professor of Philosophy at the University of Mississippi, and a voice of reason. Ladies and gentlemen, he can use the University of Bangor as an example to his students tomorrow, can't he? Now, University of Bangor do say the views expressed by societies are their own and do not reflect university policy. Bangor University remains politically neutral and supports freedom of speech. Well, in that case, you should give them all a detention this week and haul them into the office to find out why they made that decision. Right, still the Wyoming Granite Act, and it has just cleared its final hurdle. Now, this is part of an effort in America to shield citizens from foreign censorship laws. Let me get the full lowdown from tech and free speech lawyer Preston Burn. Now, Preston, this was brought to my attention because I saw you tweeting about it today. Now, why is this cause for celebration as far as you're concerned? Explain it to us.
Sure. So this is actually, it's the first procedural hurdle. We've got a couple more hurdles to go. We've got to get it through committee and then get it through a floor vote. But this is the outcome of for government timelines, a very swift process where we managed. So I represent, as you know from our conversation last week, all of the targets of the UK Online Safety Act in the US. We understood that taking on the UK in court repeatedly was not a scalable solution, and what we needed to do was develop a shield law to protect Americans from foreign censors. And so I proposed that shield law on my blog on October the 18th. We had a bill in Wyoming by November the 20th. That bill was introduced informally at the end of January. It cleared the first procedural hurdle today. We have a carbon copy of that bill in New Hampshire, and also the federal government is reportedly considering introducing a version of its own. So this kind of solution, a structural solution to censorship, is really the only thing that's going to be a lasting solution to censorship, and that's why this is cause for celebration.
And what does that mean then, that it's a shield law, Preston?
So there's a shield and a sword. So the shield says that foreign censorship orders are not enforceable in the United States, which is something we already know, but this just confirms it very explicitly in writing. And the second thing that it says no American executive branch agency, or rather a Wyoming executive branch agency, can cooperate with foreign censorship orders in serving them or effectuating the service on American citizens. The other part of it is the sword piece, where it says that any foreign censorship agency, and the state, the agency, the individual responsible, an international organization like the European Union or European Commission, if they communicate a threat to an American citizen, to fine them or penalize them for their constitutionally protected association or expression, the American citizen can bring a federal court action in Wyoming, in the Cheyenne federal courts, for the greater of $1 million, 10% of the targeted entity's U.S. revenue, including taxes, levies, and fines, or the amount of the threatened fine. So in the UK's case, for example, they were threatening Americans with $25 million or 18 million pound fines. They send one letter per occurrence. We respond with a lawsuit, and every communication into the United States invites a $25 million lawsuit in response.
So it really is a huge win. As you say, you're not there yet. But how optimistic are you that this will get pushed through, at least to a starting point in Wyoming? And second question, who will be really unhappy about this tonight?
Well, in terms of how happy we are and optimistic, it was a very close vote. It really came down to the wire. There were 57 votes in favor and 5 votes against. So we won by an enormous. This was an enormous margin, and gives us some pretty considerable hope for optimism that we're going to get this over the line. Who would be most upset about this? I imagine in Brussels and London tomorrow morning, there are going to be some hard conversations, particularly over at Ofcom, where I have communicated to Ofcom directly that we developed this law as a direct response to their intrusions into the United States and the threats that they directed towards my clients. So if the UK censorship industrial complex is looking for someone to blame for this American response, they really only need to look in the mirror.
Preston, I think you're a genius, actually, and I think you're blazing a trail for all of us in the UK that want to preserve free speech. I'm so grateful. I just want a little response from you tonight. I don't know whether you've seen, there's a story that Bangor University Debating Society, one of the biggest universities, particularly in Wales, but in the UK, has banned Reform MPs from debating at their society, saying that they are homophobic, transphobic and racist because of their political views about secure borders, etc. When you hear that about our academia, what's your response?
Well, I think, student groups have if they were in the United States, they'd have a right to extend an invitation or decline to send an invitation to anyone they wish. So I don't, from a strict First Amendment perspective, I think that's totally acceptable. In terms of, free and open debate, universities on both sides of the pond are not known for being places where free and open debate happens anymore. But they're a student group. They're entitled to invite who they want to invite or disinvite who they want to disinvite. I think there's a problem when public money is used to discriminate against whose voices are heard. But yeah, it's not something that I lose too much sleep over.
Okay, well, we lose a lot of sleep over it here, but actually 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm thinking who's going to save us from this nightmare, Preston Burn, free speech lawyer, you are the man I think of. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Let me talk to my panel about this as well. Paul Cox, let me bring you in on this. I'm sure you share my sense of exhilaration when I know that there are individuals like that who are fighting on behalf of us in the UK, even though he doesn't realise it. It will have positive effects on those of us who don't believe in censorship here, Paul.
It's incredible. And I echo what you said about Preston as well. Fascinating. I was really, really intently listening to what he said. Obviously, it's a subject close to my heart. And free speech is, the last bastion of free speech is the US. It's the home of free speech. We don't have free speech here. We have kind of speech that's prescribed to some degree. I know what I can and can't say openly in public. And even as a stand-up comedian, there are things that I have to make sure I'm careful about. Whereas if I did any one of those things in the US, I'd probably be very well protected. We do, of course, and we probably should mention them, have the Free Speech Union in this country. And that's an independent private body set up by Lord Tony Young in order to help provide legal support for maybe someone like me who is right-leaning, supports the sort of policies Reform are interested in, and you know, if I had an employer that wasn't GBNews, for instance, and shared that, I could quite easily lose my job in this country just for stating what, you know, 30% of the population in the adult UK population support at the moment. So it's fascinating to hear. I'm glad that work's going on, and it's almost a shame that it has to carry on this way, but I'm glad it is.
Richard, we have about 12,000 people a year, as the latest figures, that are arrested for social media posts in the UK. Only about 1,100 of them will actually be prosecuted, but it is taking up so much time. We live in a country where only 5% of household burglaries ever get solved. Is it good that we look to America to help us in this regard, Richard?
Well, I do think America is the last best as regards free speech. And Preston's right. If it was a university here, the student union would have a right to do what it wants. I would say there in Bangor, where they made a mistake was simply saying why they weren't allowing Reform to speak. They should have just said, no, thank you. And the university, if they were smart, should have said, we'll host Reform. We don't need the student union to do it. We'll do it as a university. So this actually is something that could have been remedied, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is. So, yes, I think it's a kind of misallocation of resources to be prosecuting people for violating free speech. Incidentally, say that message about free speech, send it to Elon Musk and X, because they're big on censorship these days about people who aren't really keen on Donald Trump.
Tim.
Yeah, they're keen on actually allowing Donald Trump people to speak, unlike the previous owner of Twitter that was banning and shadow banning and doing everything possible. But look, I think in terms of the Bangor situation, look, this is a good thing for Reform. This is a great thing for Reform because it continues to prove that elitists and ivory tower universities have zero respect for the opposite side, and it is a rallying cry to say, come alive, come awake, let your voice be heard, and do it at the ballot box. How about? This is a big one for them, and I think it's going to continue to only just reverberate. Look, Brexit didn't happen in a vacuum. It's still there. It's still there, and the elites are going to see that soon.
Students do stupid things. They're not the elites yet. They actually
but they think they are, and they certainly showed that in this.
And it's always the left, Richard. I hate to draw this generalisation, but it's always the left who won't actually have the debate. That's what drives me mad. It's like, come on, if you want to convince us of your position, grow a spine, grow a pair, and take on the debate, Richard. Not everyone has got a pair like you,
A pair
Richard.
of what?
I don't disagree that the left would be wise and it would benefit from taking on all comers debate-wise. There's no question about it, whether it's in the US, UK, or anywhere else. I think that's a mistake. Hopefully something that will be remedied in short order.
Well, you need to set a good example.
And he does.
He does.
He's
he
very good at
really,
it.
really
Yes,
does.
he does.
Absolutely.